Our opening thought and all of the readings for today are coming from a book that I've been reading, and we've been having a discussion over the past 4 weeks. We have 4 more weeks to go. The book is titled, What If We Get It Right? Visions of Climate Futures by Ayana Elizabeth Johnson. And our readings today are coming from an interview that she did with Bryan C. Lee and Kate Orff, titled Neighborhoods and Landscapes. And the quotes that we'll be reading from are from Bryan C. Lee, who is the founder of the Design Justice Movement. Here's our opening thought from Bryan C. Lee. One way we explain our work is to establish that design justice is what love looks like in public spaces. It's an active display of care for beloved communities. The sentiment is an adaptation of the Cornel West quote stating, "Justice is what love looks like in public." Our next reading is again from Bryan C. Lee. Yeah, and the way we've structured society lends itself toward entropy, lends itself toward us tearing apart at the seams and losing connections to one another. Many of us have fewer and fewer friends. We see them less and less. So we need to think about how we stay in proximity to the things that we love and care for and ultimately need to live a fulfilling life. Our next reading again from Bryan Lee. This word resilience, just like sustainability, everyone gets tired of it. But it's important to recognize that resilience is just culture. Culture is the habits, tendencies, patterns, and routines that we collectively share. It's the consequence of persistent circumstance and prevailing conditions. It's crucial that we design and create spaces where culture can thrive. As I was driving down this morning, I looked in the mirror just long enough to realize that this is probably as close to looking like I have a clergy collar on that you'll ever see me. White t-shirt under the black shirt. I used to wear one of those when I was a student chaplain a long time ago, but not too often anymore. I've been reading this book that I mentioned by Ayana Elizabeth Johnson, titled What If We Get It Right? Visions of Climate Futures. I recommend it to everyone. It's helpful to read in difficult times. It's helpful to read some hopeful visions for what the future could be if we were to get it right, although at some points it's also difficult to read that, knowing how far we are away from getting it right now. But it's an excellent book, and it provides many really good ideas that can not only be implemented on large scales, which is where we're really failing right now, but also can be implemented on smaller community scale as well. And I think that's where I'm deriving the most hope from the reading. As part of that book, in an interview, Ayana Elizabeth Johnson, the author, is talking with design justice pioneer Bryan C. Lee Jr., who defines design justice, as we saw in the reading, as what love looks like in public spaces. And he describes it as an active display of care for beloved communities. What would, spell check, what would our communities look like if we designed them in ways that create space for culture. What would our communities look like if we designed them to have opportunities for persons to be in connection with the things that they love, with the things that they care for? I don't know about you, but when I look at the design of some of our communities, many of our communities, even the neighborhood in which I live, the design wasn't really created in that light, with that focus of creating space for culture and opportunities for persons to really be in relationship with each other, to be connected with each other, except maybe for the community swimming pool and the little park around that. The rest of the neighborhood is just people living in their individual homes, no front porches, and not much interaction taking place. We know that when spaces are designed for social interaction, that more social interaction will take place, and you can look at the example of a farmer's market to see this pretty clearly. Anybody frequent farmers markets? Is there a farmer's market nearby here as well? We know that there is significantly more social interaction at farmers markets than there is at supermarkets, because they are designed with social interaction in mind. In fact, there's been some studies in relation to this that typically at a farmer's market, there's about 15 up to 20, between 15 and 20 social interactions that each person has when they spend time at a farmer's market, whereas they only have 1 or 2 social interactions if they're in a supermarket. So the design of things can enhance or hinder our relationships with one another. Bryan Lee notes this when he says it's not enough to have a pretty building. You have to have a process that doesn't just include people, but is so thoroughly invested in the needs and the outcomes of those communities that it expands the possibilities that are there. Not just a building for people to be in, not just a building for people to use, but a building and a space that actually expands the possibilities that are there, that expands the possibilities for relationship, for beloved community. There's so many significant examples of the difference that design for justice and access and relationships in community can make in the quality of life. And there's some of those that I've had the very good fortune to experience in person, and some I've had the good fortune to experience virtually, thanks to Zoom. I'll look at a couple of in-person experiences first, and then one virtual experience. Detroit, Michigan. In 2018, many of you remember that I took a group of 18 of us from Oklahoma City up to Detroit, Michigan, to spend some time, a week, at the Boggs Center there in Detroit, which is a center that really focuses in on issues of community and justice in Detroit. You may know the history of Detroit well, but at one point, Detroit was the wealthiest city in the United States. Had 2.2 million people living there in 1945 when my mom lived there as a 5-year-old and 6-year-old while her dad was doing an internship at the hospital. And now there's less than, I think, 700,000 people living in Detroit. The economy is nothing like it used to be. We all know that Detroit was built, speaking of design, built around the automobile industry, and the automobile industry in Detroit is not close to what it used to be now in the present. And many people have left the city And there are neighborhoods that in many cases are abandoned, homes that have not been lived in for years. Many of those homes have caught on fire. A lot of open space in Detroit that is not being used. And there's a movement within Detroit to do something about that, to address this problem, this economic problem, but also an opportunity that all of this open space within the city opens up. And the opportunity that it opens up is the ability to have community gardens and urban farms all over Detroit, to the point now that Detroit is the leader in the United States in the urban farm movement. In fact, the largest urban farm, at least the last time I checked, so things change, but last time I checked, D-Town for Detroit, D-Town Urban Farms is the largest urban farm in the United States. And they're working, they're not quite there yet, they're working to the point where they want to provide 50% of the fresh vegetables that are being consumed in Detroit, have those grown in Detroit. They're moving in that direction. Not only have they been working on designing urban farming and community garden network, but they've also been designing alternative economic models that really focus on local community and local exchange, and designing the community in ways that people interact with each other more than they did in the past, and they do that more outside than they did in the past. They have a number of community art projects throughout Detroit that are in public spaces, that are in neighborhoods, that encourage community participation and creativity. And when I say community participation, people in the neighborhood actually are involved in the artwork. It's kind of an ongoing living project of art in some of the neighborhoods there. So design, intentional design, focused on providing a more localized economy, providing more alternative economic activities, and more culture in public spaces is making a difference. The people that are involved in it would say they have a long way to go. That's certainly the case, but it's making a difference in building community in Detroit. Another personal experience I had, although it was not quite as intensive as my experience in Detroit, I had the opportunity to go to, there's so many ways to pronounce the name of this city. I'll pronounce it in the American English way, Gothenburg, Sweden. I think they pronounce it Göteborg. But Gothenburg, Sweden is where the World Methodist Conference was located in August of 2024, and I was a representative at that conference. And Gothenburg, Sweden just happens to be at least it's ranked this way, it's rated this way, the most sustainable city in the world. It's competing constantly. Anyone want to guess the other city that it competes with for that ranking? Any guesses? No? It's in that region of the world, Copenhagen. So Copenhagen and Gothenburg are kind of neck and neck. They're constantly competing to be the most sustainable city in the world. Both places, although I've not been to Copenhagen yet, but Gothenburg has bicycle paths everywhere. Everywhere you look. In fact, they also have walking paths everywhere you look. And the only thing you have to worry about when you're on the walking paths is to look out for the bicycles because they're coming from everywhere. But they're safe walking paths, safe bicycle paths. You can get anywhere in the city by bicycle. If I tried to get anywhere in the city by a bicycle in Oklahoma City, I'd be taking my life into my hands because it's very, very difficult to do. It's not designed for that. Intentional design for persons to be able to walk, to bike, to get where they need to go. There's also clean, reliable, accessible, and affordable mass transportation everywhere you look in Gothenburg. electric buses, streetcars, and while I was there, and the city was more of a mess than it normally is because they were creating a massive subway system in Gothenburg when I was there. They have infrastructure. They have designed intentionally infrastructure that encourages being outside and engaging other people. Or as one of the persons who's responsible for the design in Copenhagen, it encourages people to get off their you know what. And that's better for them. It's better to be moving. It's better to be engaging people instead of being locked in our cars, constantly isolated from the people around us. So that was another personal experience of intentional design, creating more quality community. Another example is less, impressive, but simply looking at the possibility of a well-designed public park in our own communities. In Oklahoma City, where I live, we have a relatively new park that I think has really made a difference for the quality of life in Oklahoma City. We spent a lot of money to create this park, not as much as we're spending on our new basketball arena, but that's another story. But we have Scissortail Park. Those of you who are from Oklahoma know why it's called Scissortail Park, our state bird. Scissortail Park downtown has a large area for community concerts, walking paths, trees, all sorts of native plants. It's really a beautiful park, and as the trees grow, it's becoming more beautiful by the year. Free music is often there, especially on the weekends. There are community gatherings. There is a farmer's market there. We go down there, have a really nice time at the farmer's market. And the park can even serve as a space for public protest when that's necessary as well. It's been a real game changer for the quality of life in Oklahoma City to have that public space where culture can be cultivated. The next example I have is of virtual interaction. I haven't had an opportunity to actually go to this place, but I've had an opportunity to speak with people who are there and to learn about what they're doing and have them engage one of my classes at Oklahoma City University through Zoom, now through Teams. And the virtual interaction has been with a group called Incredible Edible. Maybe you've heard of that name, Incredible Edible Todmorden Community Group in Todmorden, England. It was started in 2008 by two women. I'm going to guess when they started this, maybe they were in their late 50s like myself, or maybe early 60s. Pamela Warhurst and Mary Clear were the two persons who started it, and they just had an idea. They looked around at Todmorden and saw a lot of unused space. They looked at the medians, they looked at the easements, they looked at the in between the curb and the sidewalk. They looked at spaces in front of public buildings, and it was unused and just kind of there. And they got together, probably over tea, and said, what if, what if we get it right? What if we plant edible plants in these public spaces that are easy to plant and easy to care for and easy to harvest from? What if we do that? And why don't we just see if there's other people who are interested in doing this? So they called around and created an invitation for a gathering, and they thought, wow, if we get 5 or 6 people to come to this, it'll be really exciting. And they got, close to 100 people who came for this first meeting of Incredible Edible. And now, in Todmorden, those public spaces are full of plants, full of edible plants. In fact, one of the cute stories that they often tell is that there are a number of things being grown right in front of the police station in Todmorden, and people love coming there and taking things from the police station because people are invited to come and harvest when it's ready. They put signs up to let people know that the food is ready to harvest, and people love taking food from the police station. This has become an international movement. There are incredible edible chapters all over the world. Maybe there's even one here in Denison. I don't know. Not only do they have this international movement, but in Todmorden, they said, look, we're not going to be able to grow all the food we want to grow in this way because they're using organic methods. They're trying to use permaculture and agroecology. They said, look, we don't have enough public spaces in the city to grow all the food that we want to grow, and we also want to help people learn how to grow food in this way. So they worked out a deal with a farmer by the name of Nick Green, who's come on Zoom to talk to my class a number of times, where they have a community farm just outside of town on a little bit larger piece of land where they're growing quite a bit of food for the community. And not only that, they've designed it in such a way where young people from Todmorden come out there for workshops, come out there for longer stays, have internships, can work on the farm and learn how to grow food in these sustainable and resilient ways. So what if we really thought about the way we design things like they are in Detroit with the urban farms and the community gardens, and what if we really thought about designing things where we had cities here in the United States that were vying for most sustainable city in the world? Oh, I know it's a dream. I have a dream. What if we did that? What if we were intentional about creating cities where people are outside walking and biking and talking and interacting with each other, having quality relationships with each other? What would our communities look like? I think they'd be much higher quality than what we're experiencing today if we made the depth and quality of human relationships the priority in the way that we designed our buildings, our parks, our cities, our neighborhoods. I think the quality of life would be much better. What if we designed for human community? What if we designed for culture? What if we designed for being in harmony with the other than human world, with our ecological community as well? I mentioned very briefly that Incredible Edibles was started by two women. I've talked with them on Zoom as well, from a relatively small town. Todmorden's not, and it was in many ways a dying town. It had lost a lot of its economic activity. And now, with that simple idea, they've created an international movement with these incredible edible chapters all over the world. So I leave you with this question as you think about how design for justice and relationship within beloved community might happen where you are. It can happen in this space, it can happen in this community, it can happen wherever it is that you might live. Could the next international movement for sustainable and flourishing community start right here in Denison, Texas? Is there a couple of you in the room right now that have that idea that you might sit down together and invite others to be a part of, to create intentionally a design for beloved community here in Denison, Texas? Sure, it can, right? Why not? And in the words of John Lewis, who would often ask, if not us, who? If not now, when? May it be so. Go in hope, for the arc of the universe is long, and we can bend it towards justice. Go in courage, for together we have the strength to confront injustice in our daily lives and the larger world. Go in love, because a holy and generous love is both the reason and the means by which we transform our lives.